Hi everyone, Jedediah Thomas here. Today I wanted to talk about acceptance. So the context is one of my clients slash church members. I was able to raise them up on the David Hawkins scale to the level of acceptance, and you can find, that scale anywhere online. And basically, along with that, it started drawing them to accepting things, but then there were some things that they were having trouble accepting about, their life and their situation and their circumstances of not being where they wanted to be by the time frame that they wanted it to be. They were hoping they would be further along, and basically the things that they weren't able to accept were not only causing stress and friction, but also basically preventing them from actually moving forward with fixing those things. And basically, in order to fix things, you have to accept the way that they are, right? Like you can't imagine that your car is fixed already and then, right, if it's broken and then you don't fix it because you already think it's fixed. And that goes for a lot of things. Like a lot of people want to imagine that they're better off than they are or that they're further along or whatever, and it's not actually reality. And your mind can't tell the difference. And so a lot of the kind of like new age spiritual type stuff has a lot of that in it, right? About manifesting, about, just imagining and believing that you're where you want to be, and then supposedly everything will fall into place so that that happens. But there's a way to do that where it kind of helps somewhat, but there's a way to do it where it actually takes you further away from that reality because then you're no longer accepting the reality that you're currently in and you're fighting it. And so I came up with an analogy for them to kind of understand how this works in reality and how this works in the mind and how this works basically generally in every way that would be applicable. So the analogy that I came up with is imagine you have a GPS, right? It knows the destination, it can give you directions, right? It's like it's technically functioning, but it can't figure out where you are at any given point in time, right? So it's like at one point you're on the eastern side of the city, on the a couple minutes later you're on the western side, and now you're all over the place, right? It keeps flipping your starting location to a different place. Now, what's that going to do for you? Well, you're going to get lost, right? Because just because you think you're heading towards the destination, right? It shows the blue line and you're supposed to be heading to the right destination. That's all correct. But if you don't have the right starting place, right, you could be going completely the wrong direction. You'll make wrong turns. You'll have no idea where you are whatsoever. And the mind and reality works exactly the same way, right? If you're in a bad situation, you have to accept that you're in a bad situation. It doesn't mean that you have to beat yourself up. It doesn't mean that you have to feel bad or, woe is me or be a victim. You just have to look at it and say, okay, here's where I am. Here is my starting point, right? And that's where I'm going. And based on where I've started, based on where I am right now, here are the turns that I need to make to get to my destination. But if you think that you're already there, or you think that you're halfway there, you think you somewhere other than where you're at, then you're not going to be able to figure out how to get from where you are to where you're going, right? It's like a broken GPS. So if you're having trouble accepting things, then obviously raising yourself up on the scale of consciousness would help with that. But there are probably things that you're having trouble accepting as well, which would be like um, very similar, right? Like, in my own life, I would have hoped that I would be a lot further along right now. I didn't account for 15 years of disability and 11 years of, being traumatized that I had to invent world-class healing methodologies to fix. But that's the reality of it, right? Like I can fight against that. I can, imagine that I'm a millionaire or imagine that, I'm already successful. It's not going to help me get to that level, right? it's a nice goal, it's a nice vision. There's nothing wrong with having a vision, right? You can have the destination in mind, but you also have to accept where you are right now, right? And the faster you do that and the more powerfully you do that, your mind will be able to say, oh, here's exactly the situation that I'm in right now. What processes, procedures, directions, tasks, what do I need to do to get out of this situation and then to the goal, right? It can't engage that deeper level of thought and processing if you think that you're already there. And so, like I said, this is something that's kind of preached in the New Age spirituality, like law of attraction, manifestation type crowd. There is a way to do it that is helpful, and that's where like you have the vision in mind, right? You're certain that you will get there, but if you imagine that you are already there, then you will actually disengage your mind because it will think that you're there, and then it will make it that much more difficult to actually get there because you're no longer solving the situation you're in, you're solving an equation that doesn't exist, right? Your mind is saying, okay, I need to get to X. I'm already at X. What do I need to do to get to X? Well, I guess I don't have to do anything. Huh. Solved, right? That's not reality, right? So it's okay. If I'm at X and I need to get to Y, how do I get from X to Y, right? And then your mind will say, okay, I could do this, I could do this, I could do this, I could do this, right? And then you'll actually have a much better chance of getting there, and in a way that aligns with reality in a lot more of a real way than some of these manifestation law of attraction gurus actually preach, right? Everything must align with reality, everything must align with physics, and imagination is great, but it has its limits, right? You can only imagine so much until you become completely disconnected from reality and you start getting deluded and nothing really happens good from that, right? Right? When they start taking your house and your home and your car and everything, and you're like, it's gonna work out. It's good. It's like I'm a millionaire. I'm a millionaire. I'm a millionaire. Right? It's like, well, yeah, maybe you're not yet, right? Maybe you will be, but you gotta take the steps to actually get there, right? You can't start with the roof. You gotta actually build the house from the ground, from the foundation up, and then the walls, and then the roof, and then that's how it's going to work out. But if you just say, okay, I have a roof, I have a roof, I have a roof, well, maybe you don't have as much of a roof as you thought. So, anyways, that's a little bit about acceptance. I just wanted to share that metaphor that I came up with the car or the GPS rather, and just understand that your mind is like the most powerful computer that has ever been invented and probably will ever be invented. And it is entirely up to the equation that you put into it that determines its processing ability, right? So if you put in the wrong equation, you're going to get the wrong output, right? There's a saying in the IT world, which is garbage in, garbage out, right? If you put bad stuff in, you're going to get bad stuff out. If you put the correct equation in, then you're going to get very more likely at least the solution to that equation. Maybe there's something you haven't figured out, maybe there's something you need to learn, maybe you need, insider advice or coaching or whatever, right? Or a different vehicle to get there, but at least you'll have the right equation and you won't be pretending and wondering why life is passing you by and nothing is changing. Thanks for watching. I'll see you on the channel. Bye.